Hello, this is Paul with the Oaken Knight, back with you once again to give you a review of two games, both about the Battle of Pea Ridge. I hope to do something a little different for you here today, where instead of just showing one game where you kind of get a monocular view of the game as far as what it has to offer, I'd like to do a side-by-side comparison of these two. So now you see the differences about how these two games have been put together by their designers and put out by their publishers. In this case, again, both are on the Battle of Pea Ridge, Thunder in the Ozarks at the regimental level, Battle Hymn at the brigade level, each giving their treatment and their interpretation of the Battle of Pea Ridge, using the system that they're putting together for their series of games that they're publishing through Revolution Games for Thunder in the Ozarks, Compass Games for Battle Hymn. I'd like to begin by showing you some of the battlefield in Thunder of the Ozarks, give you an idea of kind of what the battle is about, and to show you what the terrain map has to offer from this particular game. The map style itself is a little bit on the busy side, but once you get used to it, I think it's very functional and it's actually enjoyable to play on. As far as the battle is concerned, the battle really breaks down into two parts. First being over here where I pointed is Elkhorn Tavern. That would be on the east map, and on the west map I'll show you in a bit is Leetown. And you're going to have two clusters of units fighting over each of those areas is the main point of the engagement. There are roads that connect the two. You see basically part of the roads heading out here, so that there is a connection. You can one side can reinforce the other, but they're separated by enough terrain and there are few enough units so that you're not going to have a solid line of unit going across the map, fighting for these two areas. It's going to be kind of scattered units that concentrate in these two areas. The map itself shows here's an example of clear terrain around the tavern and gentle slope down to the river. Gentle slope typically isn't going to do much in terms of movement. It's not a great hindrance. You can have some line of sight impact if you have of a area. Say if you're back here and you got a unit down in the hole, this hex here could interfere with line of sight. But it's not a tremendous issue. But the next gradient that you have to pay attention to, whereas if this is a gentle slope, this is actually a more significant slope, and you see the kind of the fuzzy brown parts on the hex side. That's letting you know that this is a more of a challenging hex side to pass. And then next, over here, you see a double gradient. That's going to be a steep slope, so it's going to be even harder going up beyond this point when you try to go up to higher elevation. And then finally, and this was hard to figure out from the terrain key. I think Callendale was talking about that when he was talking about Stonewall Sword, and I'm going to talk about it here. The terrain key did not make this clear to me. There's these hexes called angled. These are the hardest hexes to deal with as far as movement. And the only real difference is if you see the continuation of all those brown lines, all these little fuzzy lines, they continue all the way through the hex. And when they do that, then you got an angled hex. So this is a tough hex. You're going up a steep slope into heavy woods, up into an angled hex, and then you're going up a steep hex up into more heavy wood. So that's not the easiest area to get your units through. The Confederate attacks are going to be coming down the road. You see the Confederates are going to be setting up in this area here and attacking into the Elkhorn Tavern. And they have the advantage initially in numbers, although more Union troops will be showing up. This is the Gettysburg of the West, so the Confederates are on the attack in the beginning, and the Union is trying to fend them off long enough to solidify their line. On the other side of the battlefield, the Confederates are setting up in these fields. And they're trying to attack down this road all the way until we get to Leetown. And Leetown is here represented by 4 hex with a whole pile of victory points. Overall, I'm very happy to play on this map. I think it does what it's supposed to do. It's kind of stylistic, and I'd say overall a pleasure to play on once you get to know the feel of it. I guess one last thing that I might not have mentioned is that if you look closely, and at first it's so subtle I didn't even notice it, they actually put elevation numbers on various hexes. And so once you know that, then it's even easier there is, to figure out how high things are. Because, well, yes, as per normal things, the rivers are going to be at the lowest level, and you're going to go up from there. But it is nice to know that this is level 5, that is level 6. That's what these numbers are telling us. Over here, we're down at level 4. And so it makes, interpreting the map that much easier once you get used to it. Here we are back at Elkhorn Tavern in Battlehymn's rendition of the Pea Ridge battlefield. First thing I notice is just how green the world is. And if we pan out just a little bit, we can see it is kind of a matrix version of the Pea Ridge battlefield, where it's a very greenish sort of world. It's not unattractive, but it just kind of is what it is. The map itself is a single map panel, unlike Thunder in the Ozarks, which has 2 map panels, but the size of the maps is roughly the same. The individual maps in Thunder in the Ozarks is somewhat smaller, and it makes for an L-shaped map. The map in Battle Hymn is, I have a 36 by 30 inch plexiglass panel that I'm working on, and we see we just don't quite make it. So we're probably something about 38 inches or so in width, and we easily make it into 30 inches the other way. The second thing I noticed about this particular map is that we don't have any near the level of detail as far as elevation is concerned. In this world, there are basically 3 elevations. We have an escarpment elevation that's down in by the rivers. We have a baseline elevation that's most places, and we have a slope that's presumably leading up to a higher elevation over here by the Elkhorn Mountain. Outside of that, it's really kind of a flattish sort of world that we're in. Again, this is a brigade level, so maybe at the brigade level, Eric Lee Smith, the designer, is saying it's just not as important as it is in perhaps at a lower level, at the regimental level. And to give you a little bit better idea of what things look like, I just want to pan around a little bit. We see this is where the Leetown folks are going to start coming in. The Confederates are going to coming in, driving towards Leetown. Leetown itself is located right here. Again, instead of being 5 hexes big, or 4 hexes, I think it was in Thunder in the Ozarks, we have a single hex here and a single clearing hex inside of some kind of woods. It looks to be, well, woods versus forest. I would call that light woods versus heavy woods. That's pretty much the same as the other game, having 2 levels of woods. One of the big differences between the maps is that the Battle Hymn map has many of its charts and tables and retention boxes and things stationed around the map, as well as the turn track. In Thunder in the Ozarks, those are all on separate. Their equivalents are all on separate sheets that you have scattered around the tabletop, probably under plexiglass, but maybe not. And as in Thunder in the Ozarks, we have Elkhorn Tavern here, and Leetown is the 2 main focuses of the day, with roads going along to connect them so that troops can be shuttled back and forth as needs be and as strategy dictates. The overall look of the map is pleasant and extremely functional. I don't think there's any ambiguities on this map at all. I think once we get over into the northwest corner, I don't know, it looks kind of boring over in this part of the world, but I don't think too much of the battle is going to be happening over there, so it probably doesn't matter. And since it's right here on the map, I'll show you the terrain key, where we can see we have the clear terrain, woods, forest, so that's your heavy and light woods, no doubt, equivalents in Thunder in the Ozarks. Different types of roads, same thing, we have major roads, minor roads in the other game. Streams, creeks, okay, we've got 2 kinds of rivers, let's see, and slope and escarpment, keeping the elevation very simple. Again, it seems to be a 3-level world, and for this game, it's probably just fine. Here we have a presentation of both maps put together with the west map, or the Leetown map of Thunder in the Ozarks, overlaid right on top of Battle Hymn's Pea Ridge map. Now, the first thing to see is that the maps were not drawn at the same scale. The scale of the Thunder in the Ozarks map is one hex at 150 yards, and Battle Hymn is one hex is 300 yards. And that would be as expected for a game that's at the regimental level versus the brigade level for Battle Hymn. So when we pan over here, if you remember, Leetown was a single hex in Battle Hymn. Here we have it as 4 hexes in Thunder in the Ozarks. As far as the overall feel for the maps, I feel there's more detail in the Thunder in the Ozarks map. Again, as would be expected for a brigade or for a regimental level map as opposed to a brigade map. The Battle Hymn map is kind of very shades of Army green, and it's going to have to. You'll have to kind of decide what you want to see. If you're going to be staring at this for some hours, which map do you want to see? It's really a personal thing, and it's up to you. I will say that the Battle Hymn map is very, very clear. I doubt there's a single ambiguity on the entire map. And so for people who don't want to put their noses in the rulebook all that much, it would be a great map to use. Your focus is going to be on the counters and what's going on in the battlefield, not necessarily what's going on with the map behind it. But having said that, my personal inclination is more towards the map that's giving me a bit more variety and, quite honestly, a lot more detail in terms of elevation and just interesting things that the terrain has to offer. So that's overall assessment. When you just lay one next to the other, this is what I'm seeing. Now I'd like to take a look at how the actual playing pieces look on the maps that we have to work with. Over here, in the Battle Hymn map, we have two brigades, or one artillery unit, one cavalry brigade. We see the cavalry symbol, the slash that you expect to see on any cavalry sort of unit. It's got a setup hex, and the PR means, remember that Battle Hymn Volume 1 came with 2 games in it. It came with Gettysburg and Pea Ridge. And as such, it's a fantastic value as far as that goes. This is a piece from the Pea Ridge game. So it's telling you to help you sort your counters, I think, just to have the Pea Ridge on there, PR. It is telling you that it's got a strength of 4, movement of 12, and 0 means kind of a neutral morale rating. It's a kind of a middle-of-the-road unit. This artillery unit, it's got its strength rating, it's got junky morale, and it's got its movement rating. And both counters have a formation stripe. And that's in common with both of these games. Both of these games are chit pull systems that are based on the formations from which the units are attached. So we go over to Thunder in the Ozarks, and we see a similar sort of thing. We see a rifled musket. That's an infantry unit. The Illinois is a nice touch. We see the name of the brigade commander. We see the strength. We see the type of rifles it's carrying. These are just regular rifled muskets. That level of detail does not show up in the brigade level game, but it does in the regimental level game. So if you like that sort of thing being factored in, well, you got to go regimental. And this last number is called a cohesion rating. It's it's the general unit quality. In this case, bigger is better. And here's the second one, the 8th Indiana. Very similar sort of unit, a little higher quality, and we see it belongs to Patterson's brigade, a different formation, therefore we have a different color. So when we draw our chits, we're going to have a chit that's going to have a green Patterson on it, or a green one matching this. I think that's the Missouri State Guard, I think MSG. So this would be an artillery unit from Missouri State Guard, and it's going to have green. So when the green one is pulled for Battle Hymn, that unit's going to be active. And so that's how this works. One thing that jumps out, actually 2 things. Now that I put the map side by side, in addition to the pretty colors and everything, we see the designers made different choices in how to lay the grid on the map. The hex grid is going up and down with one, and it's kind of going off to the side with the other. So it would be interesting to hear why the designers decided to do one versus the other. They obviously took different approaches. Second thing, and this is a gameplay sort of thing, we see that while the counters are exactly the same size, this would be 5/8 of an inch, Thank you, thank you, thank you. I love 5/8 of an inch counters. My aging eyes really appreciate it. So I'm sure I have a lot of company with that. But if we look at the actual hexes, the hexes are actually different size. The hexes for Thunder in the Ozarks are actually smaller than in Battle Hymn. Battle Hymn is providing bigger hexes, a little bit easier. When units are right bucked up against each other, it's going to be less units falling over on top of each other and getting tangled up. However, I will say that with Battle Hymn, while stacking is only one unit, you're typically going to have two status counters underneath the units. We can talk about that a little later as far as step reduction counters, both for permanent losses as well as temporary disorganization sort of losses. There's no equivalent to that in Thunder in the Ozarks because there's our second step. We take a loss, we flip, and then if that unit takes a loss, it goes into a recovery track. Over here, well, we don't have that. Not there, not there. So all that is being dealt with loss markers. So for Battle Hymn, whereas it's being handled in a completely different way for Thunder in the Ozarks. Thunder in the Ozarks comes with two rule books, one being the special rules for the two games included in the box. There is a Gettysburg game, as I mentioned earlier, and the Pea Ridge game that we're talking about here. The special rules for both games are included in the special rules manuals and will include things like setup information as well as different scenarios that are included for each of the two games in the box. Here's the standard rules for the system. This would apply to all the games that are in this box and presumably in other games to come. As I mentioned, the second volume is getting ready to come out. It's going to include Shiloh and Battle of Bentonville, I believe, one of the late battles just before the end of the war. Finally, the rule books for Battle Hymn are really nicely done. You can see it's just lots of full color treatment with lots of examples being shown for teaching you how to do things, what order to do things, how to resolve different combats, and all of that stuff. So it's a really well laid out rule book, and it should not pose any problems for people who have any experience with gaming. Even a novice, I think, could puzzle them through this book without a whole lot of problems. The rule book for Thunder in the Ozarks is very different in the sense it's very basic, black and white print, nothing fancy going on here. The whole rule book is pretty much black and white print while there are examples, there are no pictures to go along with the examples. It's simply text. In that sense, they are helpful. I'm glad to have them, but it's just not the same as having the full color treatment that's provided in Compass Games Battle Hymn. So as a result, this is probably not a game for the first timer or someone who's just getting started in gaming. An experienced gamer will be able to puzzle through this, and with a few exceptions such as the angle terrain that I mentioned earlier, it was really hard to figure that out just from the terrain key and the written description in the rulebook. That exception, I really didn't have that many troubles dealing with it. Just a close read, play around with some counters, and maybe another skim of the rulebook, and you should be good to go. Finally, there is only a single rulebook for Thunder in the Ozarks, so it really combines the special rulebook and the standard rulebook into a single book. Even though this is going to have multiple games, and already does, they did not provide separate books for standard rules and special rules. So here is the back cover of the rulebook. We see things like a reinforcement listing for one of the scenarios, and the Confederate reinforcement schedule for one of the scenarios, and all in a single book. Here is the sequence of play for Battle Hymn. Step one, as we see, is to determine the initiative. Now, to understand this, you need to understand that each side has a single combat counter. Combat doesn't happen just because units move up against each other. It only happens when a combat counter is pulled out of the cup. The side with the initiative gets to hold their combat counter on the side, and they get to play it when they choose to play it rather than when it comes out of the cup. So that way they get to coordinate their attacks better than a side without the initiative. Second, they put all the counters in the cup. That's going to be all the various formations. Then we start picking counters out of the cup. This is the heart of the system where different counters come out, usually going to be a formation. That formation will get to move. That formation will not get to have combat. That only happens when a combat counter is drawn. Finally, we keep repeating step 3 until they have an empty cup. And then you tick the turn, put reinforcements on the reinforcement track, and that turn would be done and on to the next turn. Here is the sequence of play for Thunder in the Ozarks. In the command decision phase, each side gets to set aside one of 7 event chits and force that into the cup. Then 4 of the remaining 6 are also randomly put in the cup, so there was going to be events that happen as chits get pulled out. These counters will do things like possibly negate a order given to a brigade from the other side, command confusion. It can initiate a fire combat for, say, a single unit. Unlike Battle Hymn, where the only way you have fire combat really is to pull a combat counter out of the cup, here it's all integrated into the various orders that brigades can be given. There will be also a Fog of War chit and a Fortunes of War chit that will also be put in the cup and introduce additional randomness as far as what happens as chits come out. Finally, all of the formation chits for generally division level officers are put into the cup, plus 1 Commander-in-Chief counter. Now, because Earl Van Dorn for the southern side was sick the morning of the battle, his counter doesn't come in till later in the game. He starts with a replacement counter that only has a 50-50 chance of actually doing anything. We move on to step 3, where counters are drawn out of the cup. Combat happens. Unlike Battle Hymn, combat can happen during a unit's activation. There is no equivalent to a combat chit coming out, except for a few event chits that can force, say, a single shot by an artillery piece or a single firefight between 2 adjacent pieces. Generally, your combat is going to be done within the formation's draw. Brigade activation, you pull a certain brigade's counter. He gets orders. Now, unlike some games, there are no written orders in this game, but there are 4 different modes that brigade can operate in for this turn. That would be for rallying or defending or movement or attacking. Now, you can move if you pick an attack order, and you can move when you pick a defend order, but you move less. When you do a rally order, you don't move at all. Defense gets to move some. Attack gets to move more. Movement or redeployment, whatever you want to call it, gets to move most of all. But on the other hand, if you're doing a lot of movement, you don't get to do combat. You don't get to go adjacent to enemy units, or what they refer to as engagement range. There are no Zocs in this game, but unlike Battle Hymn, which does have Zocs, when you move into a zone of control, you stop moving. In this game, there are no zones of control, but there is the concept of engagement range. And you can't do that if you give yourself a kind of a strategic movement order. You have to stop short of that. Thunder in the Ozarks also has, since it's a regimental system, also has fire ranges for infantry handheld guns, whereas Battle Hymn, it's only Zoc to Zoc adjacent units that are firing at each other. So without wanting to kind of read through the rules and whatnot, I just want to give you a sense that both of these games are based on chit draws. Both turns continue until chits are completely drawn out of the cup. Thunder in the Ozarks has a lot more uncertainty and randomness being introduced because of all the event chips that are in the cup, as well as the Fog of War and Fortunes of War chits that are in the cup, whereas Battle Hymn really doesn't have an equivalent for a lot of that. It's more straightforward, pulling formations and things of that sort. Here is the complete order of battle for the Confederate side for Battle Hymn's Pea Ridge. What we see here are the actual counters that go in the cup, plus there will be a combat counter for the Confederate side. But this is the formation activation counter for, in this case, it's Herbert Brigade. And here are the guys that are in Herbert's Brigade. Now, in this case, we see that Herbert's Brigade is actually it's a brigade, not a division. Okay, but they did combine a couple regiments into each of the pieces that they have. Likewise, here's McIntosh's brigade, and we have the cavalry, and they are generally represented by regiments. Missouri State Guard, various formations inside of the guard. And then here we have a division. Okay, so we have these would be individual brigades inside of the division, along with some cavalry and independent. These are actually, I think, Cherokee Indians. By way of comparison, here's for Thunder in the Ozarks. Here is are the various artillery batteries that are represented in the battle. And as I pan up, here's one of the two divisions that were present, and we have the division commander represented along with his replacement marker should he be taken out of the battle, and likewise with Van Dorn. And he starts the game with his replacement counter in the cup for the first several turns. I think Van Dorn doesn't have a chance to come on until turn 9, and then there are optional rules for kind of making it more random when he comes in. The number on the counter represents a die roll that takes place when the counter is drawn. So unlike Battle Hymn, when the counter is drawn, it's 100% that formation is going to be active. In Thunder in the Ozarks, in this case, it's 50-50 whether Van Dorn or his replacement is actually going to do anything that turn. And here we see Price, division commander for all of these guys, and it is Price's counter that actually is put in the cup. In which case, when you draw it on a 6-sided die, it's only 50-50, and it doesn't get any better than that. That he's going to actually do anything when his piece is drawn out of the cup. Should it be drawn out of the cup, these are all the various brigades at his disposal. Each of these is a regiment, so we can see things like 2nd Missouri, 3rd Missouri, 1st Missouri Cavalry, and so on. Each of these guys is simply a record-keeping device where at the beginning of the turn they're set face side up. If he's actually activated, say when the Price unit is pulled, he decides that he's going to activate. He gets to activate one brigade. Let's say he picks this guy. Now we flip that over, and that would be the brigade that he activates. Or in this case, say here, Price. Price activates Little. So the Little's brigade is active. It flips. Now, this shows that he's been activated during the turn. He can't activate it again except by the one freebie that the commander-in-chief gets, should, in this case, Van Dorn's replacement make his die roll. Then he could be activated a second time. But generally speaking, it's once per turn. Once he's activated, he picks his orders. Remember I mentioned that. And then based on his orders, he's either going to be reorganizing or trying to move down the road in column or defensive attacks or offensive-oriented action, just depending on what he picks. Now, if Van Dorn blows his die roll, he still has to pick one of his 4 subordinate units. And here on the back side of the counter, you see who they are. So we have the Missouri State Guard, we have Little, Slack, and Green. And here's what we have. And we see, Missouri State Guard is split into 2. You get to activate them separately. They each have their own record-keeping counter. So let's say what I showed you before, we did the Missouri State Guard Group B, and so he would be activated. Now, if Price, say, does not get his die roll, he still has to pick one for activation. It gets kind of a limited activation. All it can do is shoot. He can't get rid of morale states such as shaken or disordered, and he can't try to go back to full strength side on his units. All he can do is shoot. Price does not make his die roll. And I want to show you here, this is an example of the event counters that the Confederates have to choose from. That would be the 7 units that I mentioned. So at the beginning of the turn, he's going to pick one of these. He's going to put it in the cup. Then it's going to be a random rolls for the others. 4 of the remaining 6 get put in the cup, and the rest get set aside for the turn. The other 2 set aside for the turn. Here are the 2 special counters, Fortunes of War, Fog of War. Yeah, Fortunes of War just says the next, you set this one aside, it only happens once a turn, and then the next thing out of the cup is disregarded for the turn. So even if you thought a certain thing was going to happen, it may not, based on the Fortunes of War. Fog of War does other things, random things to either side. Things like movement or possible officer casualties. That's how it happens. And other kinds of things that just kind of shake things up a little bit. One of the things that I wanted you all to understand, as far as the huge difference between the game having to do with the scale, is that just the sheer number of units you're going to have to push around the map. By my count, in Battle Hymn, you have 22 units to engage with in the entire battle. That's it. The Confederates get 22. With Thunder in the Ozarks, by my count, it's 57. So you have a lot more stuff on the map in Battle of the Ozarks, again, as you'd expect with a regimental-oriented game. And what I'd like to do is just go through a brief example of play. I'm not going to try to do a replay of two games at the same time. That would make my head absolutely explode. But I think I would like to just show you a little bit as far as how this works to give you a feel for it. Let's assume that Chitka's pull out of the cup, and let's assume that it's Herbert's brigade. Well, Herbert is going to move, and let's say he decides he wants to he wants to try to take Elkhorn Tavern. He's going to make his push to do that. To do that, since everything is, all infantry combat is just range one, there's zones of control all around these units. These guys are going to go forward in their movement, advance into the zones of control until they're adjacent. When they do that, they're going to gain the moving and firing tokens. I'll show you that right now. Here are the moving and firing tokens. And what they do is they are reminders that these guys moved up to the U.S. units, to Grussel and Van Dever. The Confederates moved up to engage. And when a combat chit is pulled out of the cup, then the bullets will start flying. And certain things are going to happen based on who initiated this by moving into the zones of control. From this point, a couple things could happen. For example, maybe it's Van Devers and Grussel's. Well, they're actually from different formations. Let's assume that they're in the same one. One's pink and one's red. Okay, fine. Let's assume they're both red. When one of the things that could happen is that the First Corps chit or First Division chit gets pulled, and then Grussel's formation would have some options. One of those options would be to pull back. And so in which case they would be pulling back and they would be ending this engagement. The movement fire markers would come up and we're kind of done. Now, since this is Elkhorn Tavern, they're not going to do that. Instead, they're going to duke it out. All right, so eventually a combat token is pulled. Let's assume that it's the Confederate combat token that's pulled. So we're going to initiate combat. We're going to initiate the steps of the combat phase. And I'm just going to tick down the steps of the combat procedure. Step one is if there's a cavalry involved, they could retreat. There's no cavalry. We're not going to do that. Second step, attacker bombards. Artillery shots. Well, I'm simplifying it. There is no artillery. We're not going to do that. Third step, attacker retreats before combat. So if they decide that they don't want to do this for whatever reason, maybe the Union pulled a chit and the engagement was heavily reinforced. Well, maybe the Confederates don't want to do this anymore, in which case they can pull back and terminate it. Step four, both sides perform approach fires. Now, approach fires are only for the guys that do not have the moving firing token on them. They have to be the guys that were sitting there not moving. So in this case, it would be the U.S. units that are doing their approach fire as the Confederates advance up to them. Now, in this game, it's a bucket of dice game. So each strength point is going to get one die to shoot with, and it's going to be based on the CRT. And in this case, the CRT is simplicity itself because it is entirely dependent on the terrain. So here we see we're in the regular woods, not the deep dark woods, but the regular woods. For the approaching fire, we can see that the base for the Confederate defender in the light woods is 3, but the Union units are firing at a 3 with the base because the Confederates are in the light woods. This, with the advancing fire modifier, bottoms out at a 1, and they get 1 back with the quality of the unit. So they're shooting for 2s. And on our dice, of course, the zeros are an automatic miss, and 1 is an automatic hit. So let's roll the dice. And we see our results coming up, and basically it is a complete miss. No hits on the first shot from Grussel going over to the Arkansas troops. We'll roll the second four factors of Grussel shooting over at the Louisiana and Arkansas Regiment, and we see we did much better. We rolled three hits. We got one, two twos, and a miss. So, but not bad for four dice. The Louisiana boys had a much harder time of it. Okay, with three hits in place, we're going to roll for Vandever. He's going to split his fire between the two units to his front. And the first roll is also quite good. Those Arkansas, Louisiana guys are really taking it on the chin. We got two additional hits. So there's going to be five hits on the third Louisiana, fourth Arkansas. And we'll show you how this is handled, how these are applied to the unit in a few minutes. And now we follow up with the final attack on the 16/17th Arkansas, and we can see that there were no hits on that unit. And now we need to apply the hits to the 3rd Louisiana/4th Arkansas, and to do that we need to make a morale check, and it's a 50-50 die roll is the base. So 1 through 5, and he's going to be good. Anything more than that, and he will break. So we roll our dice and we see that the Louisiana folks broke. And so what that's going to do is going to take one of those hits and turn it into a permanent loss on the unit. And the other four will be morale hits or disorganization hits, and could be potentially recovered at a later time during the night turn. And then because the Louisiana guys lost their morale, they're going to go back 2 hexes and break off from this engagement. Once that is done, that will conclude the advancing fire segment, and we will move on to the first regular combat segment where both sides are going to be shooting simultaneously. Now that the Louisiana and Arkansas troops have done their retreat, we are left with 2 attacking regiments and 2 defending regiments. Let's see how that goes. It's what we do. We will initiate 2 rounds of combat, and there will be a possibility of retreats that could actually cut it short. But we're going to have 2 rounds of combats that happen as far as this engagement goes. Now, one interesting thing is that the center unit retreated as a result of combat. So that's going to break it down into 2 independent engagements. From what was going to be 1 engagement, 1 bigger one. Now we've got 2 independent ones. It's going to be these two units against each other, and then those 2 units against each other. So why don't we start with Vandever and see how that goes. This will be round 1 of the action between the 16th, 17th Arkansas and Vandever. It doesn't matter who shoots first. It's all going to be handled at the same time. So we have 7 shots going from the Arkansas troops over to Vandever. The base 2 hit is a 3, and we don't have the approaching fire adjustment anymore, but we do have a morale adjustment. So we're shooting in the trees, but we do have a -2 adjustment from these Arkansas troops because they're not very good. So 3 goes to a 1. So these guys hit on a 1. I've got a fistful of 7 dice, and here we go. The result was a single hit on Vandever, so that is what we're going to start with. And now Vandever will return fire, and we'll see what happens there. The base is still a 3 because they're in light woods, but he's a +1 quality guy, so he's going to be hitting on a 4. 1 through 4 is good for Vandever shooting at these Arkansas guys. It's probably not going to end well. Let's see. Well, remember what I said about bucket of dice games. Out of the 6 dice with the +1 shooting at 40% per die, we got 1 hit. And that's just the way it is. So now that is done, we are going to check morale and see how that affects these guys. Oh, in this case, let's try Vandever. It's a 50-50 shot as the base, so 1 through 5 is where we're going to start. He's a +1 guy, so 1 through 6 is going to be good for him to hold morale. And we rolled a 6, so he held morale. That hit will be applied as a demoralization hit, and he does not have to retreat. Now the Arkansas troops, their base is 5, and with the -2, they need a 1, 2, or 3 to hang in there. A 0, well that's bad with anything. So the hit is going to be applied as a real hit, and then they're going to retreat. I'll show you what that's going to look like in a sec. So we can see the net effect is that each side is going to lose one strength point, albeit the Vandever will be with a demoralization that he could presumably get back at some point. And then the Arkansas troops have one permanent hit. Remember, permanent hits you count down from the strength, so this would mean this is why he has 6 strength points remaining and why we put a 6 counter there instead of a 1, and demoralization goes upwards. So Vandever is going to have a strength of 5 with 1 temporary hit for demoralization. And the Arkansas troops retreat, and the Union does not want to advance, so that ends the first engagement with only 1 set of dice rolls. This could have gone a second round. All right, we're over to Grussel and the AMR. I assume that is Arkansas militia troops. And we'll see how that goes. They are also low-quality troops against high-quality troops. We have 8 dice from Grussel firing at 4 dice for the Arkansas boys. So let's start with Grussel and we'll see how that goes. Well, as you can see, this was really bad for the Arkansas boys. 5 hits, and he's only got a strength of 4. We'll go over what that's going to do in a minute. But for now, let's return fire with 4 points coming at him. The base is 3. The quality brings it down. Oh, no, I take that back. Take that back. The base is 5 because Mr. Grussel is in clear terrain. So in clear terrain, base is 5. And the Arkansas boys are shooting -2 because of quality. 5 goes down to 3. We're shooting for 1, 2s, and 3s on 4 dice. Well, here we go with our bucket of dice again. They all missed. Every single one whiffed. So we had a withering fire come from Grussel that's basically going to destroy the Arkansas unit, at least for the time being. It's going to shatter in the parlance of the game because its strength is going to be down to 0. And the return fire was completely and utterly ineffective, even though Grussel was in the clear. All right, let me show you how this works. Okay, Mr. Grussel took he blew his morale check. That means he's going to take 1 real hit and 4 cohesion hits, but I didn't even bother putting down there because his strength is only 4, and that is going to make the unit shatter here. For grins, I'll put it down. Okay, so we have, when we take the 3 strength points that we have left, subtract off the 4 demoralization points, we have a -1 for strength. What this does is that the unit picks up, and since there still has actual strength left, it goes to the Confederate Shattered Units box, which is just to the side of the map. At nighttime, they have a chance to regenerate some of those demoralization points. There is 1 night turn between the two day turns of March 7th and March 8th, and it's possible that this guy could come back, albeit at a reduced state. So let's go ahead and pick him up, get him out of here. He's gone. And as you can see, the units didn't make it to the second round of action. Remember, if these guys were still adjacent to each other after this first go around of combat, then it would have happened again. And as it turned out, it was bloody enough where it didn't need to happen again. So to recap, we had 3 Confederate units of low quality, although one of them's an average quality. 1 average, 2 low. Hit 2 high-quality units on the Union side. They did some damage to 1. In this case, they did one disorganization point, and the return fire was absolutely destroyed the Confederates. 1 unit is gone. This guy he took 1 hit. Okay, that's not too bad. This guy is down to 3 points left. So they effectively lost, say, 50% of their firepower in 1 round of combat, and plus the approaching fire. Had they hung in there for a second round, it would have been even worse. Remember, this is a game that only has 22 Confederate units, and you just saw some nastiness happen to 3 of them in a single round of combat. So that's the nature of Battle Hymn. I personally think that the attrition is pretty high. Units tend to go flying off the board. When you have the Gettysburg game, if you're playing that, there's a whole lot more units, so maybe you don't notice it as much. Well, I think you do, to a certain extent. But here, when you only have a limited number of units, and they're going to be split between the basically two fronts in a sense, the Elkhorn by Elkhorn Tavern and by Leetown. So maybe you're going to have like 8 or 10 units, and when one of them picks up and one of them is badly damaged in the first encounter, it's probably going to be a fairly short game. The game has 9 daylight turns for the first day, 1 night turn, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 turns of daylight for the second day. Personally, I think that the game will be decided long before you use that many turns. So if you want a fast-playing game, one that's not too complicated, I think this could be a good choice. It's just it's a very different choice than what you see over with Thunder in the Ozarks. Combat in Thunder in the Ozarks is a more complicated affair. It uses charts and tables to guide you through it, unlike having a simple to hit number that you have and then you apply some modifications to. There's a lot more going on here, but also the results are quite different that we will see. So we saw a lot of hits, a lot of disorganization, and a lot of strength reduction in Battle Hymn. Let's see what we see here in a similar sort of encounter. Now what we have here is the primary combat strength combat results table, and what we do is we have the strength points that are involved in the shot. And in this game, you can have range fire with the various types of weapons. So, for example, rifled musket is effective at range 1, 50% at range 2, and 25% at range 3. So, rifled muskets can shoot out to 3 hexes with line of sight and all that permitting. And similar for cannons, they have good range. They also had range in Battle Hymn as well. But what we see on the chart is also of note. You see a green section, a yellow section, a red section, and that is the result of the shot in terms of what's the next table that we're going to use. Okay, so if let's say you had six points of firing, and you're rolling 2 dice, and one of them is going to be the tens digit, the other is going to be the units digit, 6-sided dice. So let's say you rolled a 46 on a 6-7 table after modifications. 46, I believe, is this white row here. You would have no chance of having a red hit, which would be a severe hit. A 0 or 1 is tough, and 2 to 4 would be routine sort of cohesion check. Now, what that's referring to is the actual cohesion rating of the target. So if we look at Mr. Grusel here, we can see that his cohesion rating is 3. So if we had 7, or say we had 6-point shooting with a 46 coming in, it would be in the green. It would be barring modifiers, and there are some, but let's say there were none. You had a 2 to 4 in the green. It would be a routine cohesion hit, and I'll show you what that is. Once we know we have a routine cohesion hit, once again we're going to roll 2 6-sided dice, a colored one and a white one. The colored one is going to be used for the depletion result, and the white one will be used for the skedaddle result. So for a routine cohesion hit, we're seeing that a 1 through 4 does nothing. A 5 or 6 is a D, which is going to be a step reduction. And again, there's only 2 steps here. There's the full strength, the unfatigued, and then the fatigue side, and then the possibility, not for certainty, but possibility that the unit will pick up after that. Over here, we have, it's kind of the push side. This is kind of the kill side. This is kind of the push side, although there is some overlap. But this is simply retreat 1, retreat 2, MH R2. Okay, MH is, the lead unit is giving a morale hit. And it retreats 2. Morale hits, if it doesn't have any morale situation, then it's going to go to shaken. And if it's already shaken, it will go to disorder. Okay. Beyond that, we start rolling on the break test table, which is the thing that actually makes units pick up. So if we had a break test, we can see that we roll against the cohesion rating of the unit, barring modifiers. Let's say it's a 3, like we saw with Mr. Grusel. So it would be a 1, 2, 3. It would be passing the test. The unit would take another shaken or disrupted result, and If it was higher than that, the unit would pick up and would go into either the broken 1, 2, or 3 box as appropriate. And all that refers to is the number of turns that it's going to be before the unit is eligible to come back on the map. There are shits you can pull where you can allocate them to try to get guys back on the map, and it does not happen just at night. It can happen at any time. So let's give this a shot and see how this works. So we have the situation where we have Herbert's A section of 3 regiments, and he's actually a little bit bigger than that. I think he's got 4 in total. But just for purpose of demonstration, I put 3 down. 3 infantry units. One is strength 10, one strength 7, other strength 9. The guy on the left with an S for ammo type, which is what this is, that is S is smoothbore. So he's basically got smoothbore rifles. Just the old style thing. The other 2 have rifled muskets, or actually a mix of rifled and smoothbore. And that's mainly going to affect the range. At range 1, they're all going to be shooting at 100%. And as you see, I think that's going to be what the Confederates have in mind. All right, let's begin by assuming that the Confederates made McCulloch came out of the cup as the chit pull. Now, remember the 4 in this case is that you got to roll a 6-sided die. And if you roll a 1 through 4, he gets to designate one of his brigades. And here we see the 4 brigades that he has at his disposal. He has to pick one that hasn't already been activated, and there are markers to help you keep track of that. So in this case, let's assume that he passed his test, and he has selected Herbert A as the unit, as the brigade that he wants to be active. Now we know we have an active brigade. It's going to be Herbert A, and I want to draw your attention to the brigade orders table. So the brigade orders will be the next thing that the Confederate player has to do. He has to decide what order he's going to give to Herbert A. It can be attack, defend, maneuver, or regroup. Okay. Now let's assume that the most offensive-oriented one would be, of course, attack. Let's assume that's what he wants to do. Regroup is more for recovering from morale issues, shaken, disordered, or possibly even going from a reduced unit to a full-strength unit, recovering stragglers and whatnot. Note in this game there are no straggler counters, there are no strength point counters, so it's a completely different sort of system than in Battle Hymn. In a sense, it's a little bit more of a push system than a casualty-oriented system, and well, I hope we see that when we go through. But all right, so if we pick an attack order, that means the infantry unit has 6 movement points. It can engage. That means it can go next to the a defensive unit. If we couldn't engage, we couldn't get down to range 1. We'd have to stop at range 2. And as you see, when you're maneuvering, which is kind of moving around in column on roads, or just in more of a movement-oriented sort of formation, or regrouping, you can't engage. You can't go adjacent to an enemy unit. Combat, we can do fire combat with an attack order, and we can do close combat, both. And I think hopefully we'll get to see both of those. And rallying and recovering are not possible with an attack order. Now, as far as the actual chit, let's say this was the beginning of the turn. Herbert was the very first brigade that McCulloch had activated. Well, in which case, the Herbert A counter would be flipped. The brigade counter would be flipped, showing that, okay, he has been activated this turn. He can't activate a second time. And since there are 3 other brigades that McCulloch can activate later in the turn, his counter actually goes back into the cup for a later pull. So we're going to get it out of here. Let's assume it went back in the cup. Now that we have our orders, it's time for the Confederates to start continuing on with their activation. They're under attack orders, and let's see what they do. The next step would be the fire combat step. So each of these units now can shoot. In this game, unlike, say, the great battles of the American Civil War, where you move and then fire, here you fire and then move. So we have a range of 3. This is level 3 terrain, level 4 terrain, and we're on level 4 terrain. So that means there's kind of a dip in the middle, and And the terrain, as far as there's no hills or anything in the way. There's a depression, which is not going to affect us. All right, Herbert A., 3rd Louisiana, has 10 points with S is smoothbore. So since he's got smoothbores, I'm looking at the weapons range charts. His maximum range is 2 because he's got smoothbore rifles. Nothing he can do. No shots. Then we look at the 14th Arkansas with a mix of weapons. RS, rifled and smoothbore. Likewise, he cannot fire at range 3. So he would be, unlike the unit that has all smoothbores. Let's see if we can see. Okay. The unit with all smoothbores would be firing at 25% at range 2, but is not range 3 capable. And the rifled and smoothbore mixed unit would be 50% at range 2, but likewise cannot fire at extreme range. And since the 3rd unit also has a mix of weapons, the same mix of weapons, there are going to be no shots from Herbert prior to advancing on Grussel. After the fire combat step, the next step of the combat sequence would be for Herbert's units to move forward. Herbert's units have moved forward, and since the attack order does allow them to engage, they can move adjacent to enemy units. So here we go. After the movement, we now have close combat. Now remember, Herbert wasn't able to take any shots. He was out of range, because in this game it is fire then move, not move then fire. So he was not able to deliver any damage to Grussel because he was out of range of these subpar muskets that these units are carrying. However, because they have an attack order, they can now initiate close combat. So let's go ahead and do that. Now, in close combat, it's noteworthy that it's the same combat results table is used for both fire combat and close combat, although you can see there are different sets of modifiers that I think we'll go light on for today, but they're there. And there is a different table that you use for cohesion tests. So this table is used for, the left-hand table is used for fire combat, the right-hand table is used for melee combat. And what we see one additional category, which is close fight. What that is that in fire combat, if you have a hyphen, if you have a combat result that is a hyphen, it's simply a miss, nothing happens. Whereas in close combat, a hyphen becomes a close fight. And there are chances where the attacking unit, or more chances the attacking unit is going to have negative effects than the other more serious cohesion checks for the defender. And unlike Battle Hymn, we do not separate into engagements. What we do is we decide, okay, obviously, clearly this unit is going to be meleeing here. This unit is meleeing the 36th Illinois, and the guy in the middle, unlike Battle Hymn, where the guys split their fire up, he's going all one way or all the other. And in addition, only one unit can be the lead unit. The flanking unit, which would be this guy would be called, is only giving support as far as the odds calculation, but he has no effect as far as what tables are used other than the odds of other than modifiers that can be applied. So let's assume that since the Union units are identical, let's assume we go big. We take these two guys, the 3rd Louisiana and the 14th Arkansas, are going to attack the 36th Illinois A section, and the 4th Arkansas is going to attack the 36th Illinois B section. All right, well, let's do the simple one first. Let's do Herbert A, the 4th Arkansas, against the B section of the 36th Illinois. Now, in close combat, you completely resolve one attack before you go on to the next. So it's not quite as phase driven where we had everybody doing approach fire that qualified as an example. It's going to be one fight at a time. So we got these two guys locked in it, and we're going to, until that's completely taken care of, then we're going to continue on with that before we do anything else. The first step in the close combat sequence is for the 36th Illinois B section is going to get a shot at the 4th Arkansas. So let's go ahead and do that. We got some fire combat to do. Similar to the approaching fire that's used in Battle Hymn, in defensive fire, in terms of the melee procedure, the close combat procedure, only 50% of the points in Grusel are going to be able to fire. And in this game, everything rounds down except stacking. So 7 is going to become 3. So we're going to have a 3-point shot from the B section of the 36th Illinois to the 4th Arkansas. And well, let's go ahead and take care of that. The fire combat is going to start on the 3 column because that's how many points we have in the 36th Illinois Section B. They are firing with rifled muskets, which are going to be 100% effective at range 1. There are some modifiers that can be applied, and looking quickly at this, I see that actually there are no modifiers because we have a unit sitting and attacking through the clear hex. Easy breezy. We're shooting at guys in the open. There's nothing going on other than shooting those 3 points. So I'm going to roll 2 6-sided dice and tell you what we get. Alrighty, the roll was a 44. So we're going to look on the 3 column and go over to the 44 row. We're going to see where those intersect. And so we have 0 in the yellow and 1 and 2 in the green. Okay, so what do we do with that? Those numbers refer to the cohesion rating of the defender and what are the requirements for the unit to be the various level of cohesion tests that are offered. In this case, we had a 0, 1, and 2. 0 was yellow, 1 and 2 was green. Well, we see that the cohesion rating of the 4th Arkansas is a 4. 4 is bigger than any numbers that appeared in the table, and so the 4th Arkansas is going to be unaffected by this shot. In addition to that, if we needed it, when units of the same brigade are adjacent, they provide support to each other, unless they're in heavy woods. There's no supporting from or to in heavy woods. But in the open, the 14th Arkansas actually increases the cohesion rating of the 4th Arkansas by 1. So this guy's actually got a 5. This guy would be a tough unit to dissuade from this attack. All right, next step we're going to do is the actual melee. Let's see how it goes. Just taking a quick look at the modifier table. Since it's 9 points on 7, it's basically 1-to-1 odds. The only modifier that's going to come into play, given the scenario that I'm showing you, is there is the Herbert has a greater modified cohesion rating, so he's 4 modified to 5. Grusel's a 3 modified to 4. 4th Arkansas is 1 better because he's better. It doesn't matter how many better he is. He gets 1 shift in his favor. All right, so how do we do this? Well, we see that 4th Arkansas has 9 strength points. It's a one-on-one fight. There's nothing else going on. He gets 1 shift to the right because of his higher cohesion rating. So he's going to be rolling on the 10 to 11 column. Let's see how it goes. The roll was kind of miserable. It was a 15. All right, so we're going to go to the 15 row, and we're going to see it's going to be a 0 or, oh, no, it's going to be a 0, 1, 2. And just as before with the fire that Grusel put onto the 4th Arkansas, we have a 5. We have a 5 cohesion rate and nothing less than a 2 is going to be affected. 0, 1, or 2 are the only things affected. He's a 4. He's unaffected. However, because this is a melee, we're not done yet. We're going to go over to that close fight table that I had mentioned earlier because nobody gets away scot-free in close combat. Let me get over there. Okay, we're at the close fight table, and you can see once again we're going to roll 2 dice, a colored one and a white one. Let's see what we get. I get a 24. So on the close fight table, we get a 2. We get an AD result, and we also get an RA1 result. So what does AD do? Well, what that does is that the attacking unit is actually going to take a D hit, which is going to be a step reduction, basically. And then the 4 RA1, that's all units in that hex have to retreat 1 hex. So let's go ahead and resolve that. The step loss on 4th Arkansas is performed. The step loss on 4th Arkansas is performed as such, and then he has to retreat 2. And he retreats back into the field. That concludes the first close combat. Now let's try a situation that's got a little bit more going on. We have 2 units attacking 1. In this case, we still get to shoot. Grusel's 36 Section A only gets to shoot at 1 target. Now, B could have contributed to this, but because it was in its own close combat, it does not get to fire. So only the 36 Illinois Section A is going to shoot. So let's go ahead and resolve that. As before, it's going to be on the 7 column, no modifiers. We simply pick our target. Okay, let's pick the 10-pointer. Let's see how that does. We're going to pick the 3rd Louisiana. Well, we did much better this time for Mr. Grusel. A 56 was rolled, and here we see that something's going to happen here with this shot. To be in the severe zone is a 0, 1 or 2 for the tough zone, and 2 through 5 is routine. And, well, holy smokes, hang on here. We see that the 3rd Louisiana is a 5 quality unit, a 5 cohesion unit, and it is supported, so it is now a 6 cohesion unit. So even this nasty table, rolling a 56, a 5 does not affect the 3rd Louisiana. There's no effect with this shot. Now, having said that, if we had rolled a 61, the listing for that is 3 through 6 for the routine cohesion check, in which case even a 6 would be affected if I rolled just a little bit better. All right, so the shot is ineffective, and now we're going to do the actual close combat. To do the close combat, first the Southerners are going to pick a lead unit, and of course we're going to pick the stronger of the 2, and we're going to have the 14th Arkansas in support. So for purposes of odds only, we have 17 points of Confederates against 7. That's going to be a 2-to-1. And we can see on the close combat modifiers table, a 2-to-1 is going to result in a positive shift for the Confederates of 2. As far as the troop quality, we have a better cohesion rating, so that's going to be 3 shifts. And that, I think, is going to be it. So it's going to be a 3-shift modifier on a 10 base. Result will be a roll on the 17 to 19 column, and this is looking kind of dangerous for Mr. Grusel. Let me see what happens. Roll was at 45, and so you can see the results here. So a 0 to 2 is a severe result, 3 to 4 is a tough result, and routine is 5 to 6. We have a cohesion rating on the 36 Illinois Section A of 3. It is supported, so it is a 4. So when we look at the table, we see that we get into the tough cohesion check zone. And because this is actually doing close combat, remember, we're going to be using the close combat version of these tables rather than the fire version of these tables. Let's go ahead and resolve the close combat depletion result first. That's what you're supposed to do. The 36 Illinois is going to take its depletion result. And here's the 36 Illinois, Section A, having taken its depletion result. The next thing is that he's got to check on the break table. In this case, a die is rolled, and since the effects are actually done in this order because the result of the depletion result do affect the results on the skedaddle table. So instead of being a 3-point base unit, he's now got a cohesion rating of 2 in his reduced state, increased by 1 because he's got the other part of the 36 right next to him, and so it's going to be a 3. The die is rolled against the cohesion rated as modified. He needs a 1, 2, 3 to survive it. Let's see what he does. He does not survive it. He rolled a 4, which is 1 bigger than the cohesion result. He is broken, and he will be removed to the broken 1 box. He's out of it for 1 turn, and he could possibly come in as soon as the next turn and rejoin the fight in a reduced state. Now, there's an optional rule that says once a unit gets onto that chart, once he's broken, he can never get back to a fresh, full-strength unit again. There are a small amount of bookkeeping for that. There's no chits or anything, but really you could keep the list probably on a post-it note as far as saying, okay, 36 Illinois Section B, it was removed. If when it comes back on the map, it can never grow back to full strength again. All right, so in this case, we actually did have a unit removed, but you can see how much it took to make that happen. Second, if he had rolled, let's say he had rolled a 1, 2, 3, then what would happen is that he would have had a shaken result put on him, and I'll show you that. If he had survived the break test, then he would have had this shaken marker put on him that reduces his strength by 1 and his cohesion by another 1. So you can see this is how we start reducing strength at a smaller level of granularity than either full strength, half strength, or gone. In reality, it takes a lot to get a unit to pick up, especially a good quality unit. But as it is, he failed his test, so he picks up, and the 3rd Louisiana say will advance and put more pressure on the remaining unit from Grussel. Okay, what I'd like to do is just simply summarize things and wrap it up for you. Well, to sum this up, if I had to put one simple guideline out there, I would say that Thunder in the Ozarks is Battle Hymn ×2. And I don't mean that in the qualitative sense. I mean that in terms of, let's say, the dimensions on the map. The distance from Leetown to Elkhorn Tavern is 14 hexes in Battle Hymn, where it's 29 in Thunder in the Ozarks. You're going to have twice as many units on the map in Thunder in the Ozarks. You're going to have twice as many turns because it's a 30-minute turn simulated instead of an hour. So it's going to give you the net effect of all those ×2s is that Thunder in the Ozarks is going to give you more of a tactical feel that I think a lot of more experienced gamers will enjoy, assuming they have the time to go ahead and put into it. Now, if you don't have the time, or if you're dealing with, say, an opponent who's less experienced, or you yourself are less experienced, I think Battle Hymn may be a great choice to start with. So when I look at, okay, what's my buy recommendation? Well, you have my buy recommendation. I bought both. I'm very happy owning both. In terms of what's going to hit the table, though, for me, my personal choice is going to be Thunder in the Ozarks more than Battle Hymn because I do like that tactical feel. I like the push nature of the combat rather than units. Everything's kind of being judged by how many hits the unit took in terms of stragglers and in terms of direct hits. Units, I think, fly off the map a lot faster in Battle Hymn. It's the nature of bucket of ice systems. In addition to that, I would say that Thunder in the Ozarks, the system tries to integrate in more of the fog of war. They have the special hits you do for that, you pull for that, but also the events that are not uncommon. I mean, each side is going to have 5 in the cup each and every turn. So events are coming up all the time that can be held for opportune moments or played immediately. Those are going to change the course of the game, such as command and control breakdown. Oh, my brigade that I had just activated, well, it's not going to activate, I'm sorry. Things like that, the unexpected are going to happen, and your plans are going to end up in a rubble heap as a result. You will have some of that in Battle Hymn because you don't control when the shits come, except if you have the initiative and you do have control of your combat shit. But aside from that, stuff happens when it happens. So with all of that, I think I can give both games a thumbs up. They each have their place in the firmament of games and the space on your shelf in your collection, as well as on your tabletop, depending on your level of experience and how much time you have, and the same thing with your opponent. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and say this is Paul from the Oaken Knight, and thank you for watching, and if you could, please subscribe to my channel. I appreciate it. It just makes me feel good to see that people care enough to subscribe. Thank you much. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.